Welcome to Revenge Blaze, the channel where we share powerful stories of family betrayal, hidden truths, and the quiet strength that turns the tables. If you're new here, hit subscribe and join our community. We specialize in real-life inspired tales of justice, empowerment, and moving forward stronger than before. Don't go anywhere. Today's story is one you won't want to miss. When my daughter told me to go find somewhere else to die, you're useless now, I packed my bags like the obedient mother I'd always been. 3 days later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office watching her face drain of color as the attorney looked straight at her and asked with a quiet laugh, "Did you even read the will? If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from, because this story is about to show you what happens when greed blinds someone to the one person who gave them everything." My name is Cora Vaughn. I'm 67 years old, and for the last 41 years I lived in the same house on Birchwood Circle in Portland, Oregon, the home Floyd and I built together from the ground up. Floyd passed suddenly from a heart attack, and in the haze of grief, I thought the worst was already behind me. I was wrong. I have 2 children. My son Knox is 31 and has been paralyzed from the waist down since a car accident 8 years ago. He lives with me because he needs round-the-clock care, physical therapy, and a home that's fully accessible, the very house Serafina decided she deserved, more than we did. Serafina, my 34-year-old daughter, never held a steady job longer than 6 months. She drifted from one scheme to the next, always expecting the next handout, always convinced the world owed her luxury without effort. Floyd used to call her our princess with a credit card she never earned. After he died, she stopped pretending to care. Within weeks, she and her boyfriend Brandon started showing up unannounced, walking through rooms like they already owned them, dropping hints about how hard it must be for Mom to manage this big place alone. The stairs, the yard maintenance, the memories. They said it was unhealthy for me to stay. What they really meant was inconvenient. Then came the day everything changed. Serafina arrived with Brandon and 2 large suitcases. She stood in the living room, arms crossed, and delivered the words, "I'll never forget. Mom, we've made a decision. According to Dad's will, I inherited everything, the house, the investments, the whole 50 million. You've been staying here out of kindness, but it's time for you to find your own place." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. "Serafina, this is my home. Our home. Knox needs—" She cut me off. "Knox will be fine. You're the one who can't handle it anymore. Dad knew I'd take better care of his legacy. You never understood money. You were just the wife." 41 years reduced to 3 words. And then the final blow. "Go find somewhere else to die. You're useless now." I packed in silence. 41 years of marriage, of raising them, of late nights, caring for Knox after his accident. Everything fit into 2 suitcases and a small box of photos. Serafina watched from the doorway, checking her phone like I was delaying her dinner reservation. Brandon loaded my things into their SUV with the efficiency of someone tossing out old furniture. As they drove away, I watched the Birchwood Circle house shrink in the rearview mirror. The house where I'd bandaged knees, celebrated birthdays, nursed Floyd through his last illness, and learned to operate every piece of medical equipment Knox needs to live independently. They left me with $200 in cash to get settled, and the address of a cheap senior motel on the edge of town. 3 days later, I sat across from David Reynolds, the attorney Floyd had trusted for decades. I expected sympathy, maybe a copy of the will to prove there'd been a terrible mistake. Instead, David opened the file, read the first page, then looked up with the faintest smile. "Cora," he said, "your daughter never bothered to read the actual will." My heart stopped, because the document Floyd signed 8 months before he died was very clear and very different from whatever piece of paper Serafina had waved in my face. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you most, stick around. What happened next turned everything upside down. If stories like this hit close to home, if you've watched family turn on each other over money or felt invisible after giving your whole life to them, please subscribe right now, turn on notifications, and share your own experience in the comments below. You're not alone, and sometimes hearing how someone else fought back is exactly what we need to keep going. Let's get into it. The first few weeks after Floyd's passing were a blur of paperwork sympathy cards and the quiet routine I'd built around Knox's needs. I woke at 6 every morning to help him transfer from bed to wheelchair, made his protein shake the way he liked it with extra peanut butter, because he swore it tasted like real food, and then settled into the day. The house on Birchwood Circle felt emptier without Floyd's footsteps in the hallway, but it was still ours. Knox needed the wide doorways, the ramp I'd installed myself, the grab bars in the bathroom. Moving wasn't an option. Serafina started coming over more often. At first, it seemed like concern. She'd bring takeout from that Thai place downtown, sit at the kitchen table, and chat about nothing important. But the conversations always circled back to the house. "Mom, this place is huge," she said one afternoon while scrolling on her phone. "3 bedrooms upstairs, nobody uses that big yard you can't mow anymore. It's a lot for one person." "I'm not one person," I reminded her. "Knox lives here too." She glanced toward the living room where Knox was watching a baseball game with the sound low. "Yeah, but still. You're both stuck here managing stairs and maintenance. Dad would have wanted something easier for you." I gave a small smile, the way mothers do when they don't want to argue. "We're managing fine." Brandon usually tagged along. He wasn't much for small talk. Mostly nodded, sipped coffee, and looked around like he was appraising the furniture. Once he even asked if the hardwood floors were original. When I said yes, he whistled low and said, "Nice. Those refinish well." They came twice a week, then 3 times. Each visit brought another casual suggestion. Retirement communities with activities. Condos downtown closer to Knox's therapy clinic. Assisted living places that took the burden off family. Serafina framed it sweetly, at first concern for my health, worry about isolation. But the sweetness thinned fast. One Saturday she arrived alone, heels clicking on the entryway tile like she was walking a runway. She dropped her purse on the counter and looked me up and down. "You look tired, Mom." "I'm fine." "You sure? Because you've got that crease between your eyebrows again. The one you get when you're pretending everything's okay." I poured her coffee without asking. "What do you want to talk about, Serafina?" She took the mug, blew on it, then set it down untouched. "I've been thinking. Maybe it's time to downsize. For Knox's sake, too. He could have a place with better accessibility, round-the-clock staff. You wouldn't have to lift him every morning. Knox likes it here. This is his home." She gave a quick eye roll, just a flicker, but I caught it. "He's 31, Mom. He doesn't need to live like he's still in high school. And you don't need to play full-time nurse. It's not healthy." I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. I've been his nurse since the accident. That's not changing. Serafina exhaled sharply, like someone being patient with a stubborn child. "Look, I get it. You love playing martyr. But Dad left a lot behind. Money, property, investments. He'd want it used smartly, not tied up in a house that's too big for 2 people who can barely keep up with the lawn." There it was. The first real glimpse of what she really wanted. I set my own mug down harder than I meant to. The house isn't tied up. It's paid for. It's ours. Ours. She gave a short, sharp laugh. "Come on. You never worked outside the home after I was born. Dad built everything. The least you can do is let the people who actually understand money handle it now." I looked at her. The girl I'd raised, the one who used to beg for piggyback rides and cry when I left for the grocery store, now regarded me like an inconvenience. "Serafina," I said quietly, "your father and I decided together how we wanted to live. This house is part of that." She shrugged. "Dad's gone. Things change." Brandon showed up later that afternoon with a stack of brochures, shiny pamphlets for senior communities, all gleaming kitchens and smiling gray-haired couples playing shuffleboard. He spread them on the dining table like he was laying out a business plan. These places have medical staff on site, he explained. Knox would have his own suite. You'd have your own apartment. No more worrying about pipes bursting or the roof leaking. I looked at the glossy photos. And what happens to this house? Serafina answered before he could. We'd take it over. Brandon got a promotion, well, sort of. More responsibility, better pay. We need space. This place is perfect. I folded my arms. This isn't a real estate meeting. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. Serafina didn't. Mom, be realistic. You're not getting any younger. Knox needs professional care. And honestly, you've done your time. Let someone else handle the heavy lifting. I looked from her to him and back again. The entitlement was no longer hidden behind fake concern. It sat there plain as day, bright, shiny, and completely shameless. That night after they left, Knox wheeled himself into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. They're pushing hard, huh? He said. I dried my hands. They think they know what's best. He gave a small chuckle. They think they know what's theirs. I didn't answer, but deep down I knew he was right. And I also knew the visits weren't going to stop until they got what they came for. One Tuesday afternoon, everything came to a head. Serafina and Brandon pulled into the driveway in their black SUV, the one Brandon always washed on Sundays like it was a trophy. They didn't knock. They just walked in carrying 2 large suitcases and a cardboard box. Serafina set the box on the coffee table with a thud that made Knox look up from his tablet. Mom, Serafina said, voice flat like she was reading a grocery list. We need to talk. I was folding laundry in the dining room. I stopped mid-fold. I'm listening. She crossed her arms. I went through Dad's papers last night. The will is very clear. Everything goes to me. The house, the accounts, the investments, 50 million in total. You were supposed to be taken care of, but apparently, Dad trusted me to handle it. Brandon stood behind her, nodding slowly like he was agreeing with a business proposal. I felt the room tilt just a little. Serafina, your father and I discussed the will years ago. There's provision for, she held up a hand. I read it. There's nothing for you beyond what I decide to give. Dad knew you'd be overwhelmed. He said as much in the notes. Knox wheeled closer. Sarah, that doesn't sound like Dad. She didn't look at him. It's what it is, Knox. The lawyer confirmed it. I knew David Reynolds would never say that without calling me first. But Serafina's eyes were hard certain. She'd convinced herself. Brandon cleared his throat. We're moving in next week. Brandon got the green light at work for a bigger role. We need the space. This house is ideal. Serafina picked up one of the suitcases and set it by my feet. So we're helping you pack. You can stay with a friend or find a place. There's a nice budget motel on the east side, clean, affordable. They even have weekly rates. I looked at the suitcase. Then at her. You're asking me to leave my home. Knox's home. She sighed, the same sigh she used when I asked her to clean her room as a teenager. It's not your home anymore, Mom. Legally. And Knox can come with us if he wants. We'll figure out care. Knox's voice was quiet but firm. I'm staying right here. Serafina rolled her eyes again. Fine. But Mom has to go. Today. The words landed like a slap. I stood there, laundry basket still in my arms, feeling every one of my 67 years. Brandon started moving toward the master bedroom. I'll grab your clothes. We'll make this quick. I followed him. No. If this is happening, I do it myself. They watched while I pulled 2 old suitcases from the closet, the same ones Floyd and I used for our last anniversary trip to the coast. I packed methodically underwear, pajamas, a few blouses, the photo album with pictures of Knox's high school graduation before the accident, Floyd's favorite tie I kept on the dresser. My hands shook only once when I touched the wedding ring I still wore. Serafina hovered in the doorway. You don't need all that sentimental stuff. Just the basics. I didn't answer. When the suitcases were full, I zipped them shut. Everything I owned in the world now fit into 2 pieces of luggage and the small box Serafina had brought for keepsakes. She opened her purse, pulled out 2 crisp $100 bills, and pressed them into my palm like she was tipping a valet. "This should cover a few nights," she said. "I'll have Brandon transfer more once we sort the accounts." I looked at the money, then at her face, so familiar, yet so foreign. "Serafina," I said softly, "this is wrong." She met my eyes for the first time since she walked in. For a split second, something flickered: guilt, maybe regret. Then it vanished. "Go find somewhere else to die," she said. "You're useless now." The sentence hung in the air like smoke. Knox sucked in a breath. Brandon looked away. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply picked up the suitcases, one in each hand, and walked toward the front door. Knox wheeled after me. "Mom, I'll be okay," I told him. "Stay here. Keep the house safe." Serafina called after me. "We'll send the rest of your things later." I didn't turn around. Outside, the late afternoon sun hit my face. I loaded the suitcases into the back of my old sedan, the one Floyd taught me to drive stick on 30 years ago, and drove away from Birchwood Circle without looking back. The motel was exactly what she'd described: faded sign-chipped paint, a parking lot with more weeds than cars. The clerk barely looked up when I paid cash for 3 nights. The room smelled of old carpet and cheap cleaner. I set the suitcases on the bed, sat down, and stared at the $200 in my hand. 41 years of marriage, raising 2 children, caring for Knox through every surgery and therapy session, keeping the house running while Floyd built his business, and it came down to this: a thin bed, a flickering TV, and the realization that my own daughter had just erased me. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Knox alone in that big house, about the grab bars I'd installed, about the way Floyd used to laugh when he caught me talking to the plants in the garden. And I kept hearing her voice. Useless now. The next morning, I woke up early, the motel bed creaking under me like it was complaining about the extra weight of my thoughts. I had one thing left in my wallet besides the 2 bills Serafina had given me: the emergency cash Floyd always insisted I keep hidden in an old envelope. $300. Enough for bus fare and maybe a coffee if I stretched it. Floyd had been the most organized man I ever knew. Every bill paid on time, every document filed in color-coded folders, every important decision written down twice. He had shown me the will once, years ago, over coffee at the kitchen table. Just in case, he'd said with that half smile of his, "You'll be taken care of, Cora. Always." There was no way he'd left me with nothing. Serafina might have read something, but she hadn't read the right thing. I needed answers. And I needed them from the only person Floyd trusted with our legal life, David Reynolds. The bus stop was 2 blocks from the motel. I walked slowly, suitcases left behind in the room, because I couldn't carry them and my pride at the same time. The number 12 bus to downtown Portland took 40 minutes and cost $4 each way. I sat by the window watching the city wake up, people heading to jobs, kids with backpacks, life moving on like nothing had changed. David's office was on the 5th floor of a plain brick building near the river. The receptionist recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Vaughn, he's been trying to reach you." I nodded. "I've been unavailable." She led me straight in. David stood up from behind his desk, glasses perched on his nose, looking exactly like the man who'd handled our house closing 30 years ago, older, but still kind-eyed and steady. "Cora," he said, coming around to hug me. "Sit, please." I sat. The chair was leather and surprisingly comfortable. I didn't waste time. Serafina says Floyd left everything to her. The house, the money, 50 million. She showed me papers. She moved in yesterday. David's face didn't change much, but his eyes narrowed just a fraction. He pulled a thick folder from the drawer and placed it between us. "She showed you papers?" he repeated. "Interesting, because the original will, the one signed and notarized 8 months before Floyd passed, is right here." He opened the folder and slid the document across. I recognized Floyd's neat signature at the bottom, the same one on birthday cards and grocery lists. David began reading in his calm, measured voice. I, Floyd Vaughn, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath to my beloved wife, Cora Vaughn, the primary residence at Birchwood Circle, Portland, Oregon, including all furnishings and personal effects. Additionally, I leave her 70% of all financial assets, investments, and accounts, totaling approximately $35 million. My breath caught. 35 million. The number felt too big for the small office. David continued. To my daughter, Serafina Vaughn, I leave $15 million to be held in trust with distributions beginning on her 40th birthday contingent upon her continued respectful treatment and care of her mother following my death. Should Serafina fail to demonstrate respect, dignity, and reasonable support toward Cora, the entire $15 million reverts to Cora. He looked up. There's more. Floyd added a personal note attached here. He handed me a single sheet. Floyd's handwriting. Cora, if you're reading this with David, it means Serafina did exactly what I feared. She's always thought the world owed her. I hoped she'd prove me wrong. If she hasn't, know that I protected you the best way I knew how. You deserve every bit of this. Love, Floyd. I read it twice. Then I looked at David. She told me there was nothing for me. She said Dad trusted her to decide. David leaned back. She either didn't read the full document or chose to ignore the parts that didn't suit her. The copy she probably showed you was an early draft. Floyd updated it 6 months before he died, because he'd noticed her attitude shifting. He was worried. Worried enough to write a clause like that. Exactly. It's ironclad. Conditional trusts are common when there's concern about entitlement or undue influence. Floyd made sure it would stand up in court. I stared at the numbers. 35 million. The house. Everything we'd built together, protected by the man who knew his daughter better than she realized. What do I do now? I asked. David gave a small, real smile. First, we freeze any accounts she's touched. I've already notified the banks of a potential dispute. Second, we file a formal probate challenge if she contests. But Cora, the clause is clear. If she's treating you this way, she just cost herself $15 million. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. For the first time since Serafina walked into the house with those suitcases, I felt something besides hurt. I felt possibility. David stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Willamette River below. Floyd was thorough. He even recorded a video message sealed to be played only if Serafina contested or mistreated you after his death. I can arrange for you to view it privately. I nodded slowly. I want to see it. He turned back. Of course. But first, let's get you out of that motel. The house is still legally yours. We can have the locks changed today if needed. I thought of Knox, probably wondering where I was, probably dealing with Serafina's version of events. I need to get back to my son, I said. David picked up the phone. Then let's make that happen. As I left his office, the folder tucked under my arm, I felt the weight of 41 years start to lift just a little. Floyd hadn't left me helpless. He'd left me armed. David didn't waste a minute. By the time I left his office that afternoon, he'd already placed calls to the major banks and investment firms holding Floyd's accounts. Potential probate dispute, he told them. All distributions frozen pending review. Simple words, devastating effect. Serafina's first call came less than 2 hours later. My phone buzzed on the bus seat beside me. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Mom. Her voice was higher than usual, almost breathless. There's something wrong with the accounts. They're saying everything's locked. I can't even buy groceries. What did you do? I kept my tone even. I didn't do anything, Serafina. Your father did. Silence stretched. Then she laughed short, nervous. This is ridiculous. The lawyer I talked to said, You talked to a lawyer? I interrupted gently. Not David Reynolds. Another pause. No, some guy Brandon knows. But he said the will was clear. Maybe you should speak to the real one. She exhaled sharply. Fine. I'll come to his office tomorrow. You be there too. We need to sort this out. I didn't argue. I'll be there. The next morning, I arrived at David's building 15 minutes early. Serafina was already in the lobby, pacing in heels that clicked too loudly on the marble floor. Brandon stood beside her, arms folded, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. She spotted me and marched over. Mom, this is insane. The bank won't release a dime. They say there's a hold because of some conditional clause. What clause? I met her eyes. The one your father wrote. She scoffed. Dad wouldn't do that to me. David's receptionist appeared. Mr. Reynolds is ready. We filed into his office. David stood behind his desk, calm as ever. Serafina sat first, crossing her legs like she was at a board meeting. Brandon took the chair next to her. I sat opposite. David opened the same folder from yesterday. Serafina, thank you for coming. Let's clarify the situation. He slid a copy of the will across the desk. Serafina snatched it up, scanning quickly. Her lips moved as she read. Then she stopped. Her face changed color, draining from cheeks to neck. David leaned forward slightly, voice mild. Did you even read the will? Serafina's mouth opened closed. She flipped pages, eyes darting. This can't be right. The version I saw didn't have this. Which version? David asked. The draft from 2 years ago? Or the final one your father signed 8 months before his death? She stared at the signature. He changed it. He did. Because he was concerned about your attitude toward money and toward your mother. The clause is explicit: 15 million in trust released gradually starting at 40 only if you treat Cora with respect and provide reasonable support after his passing. Failure triggers reversion to Cora. Serafina's hands trembled. Respect support. I've always. David raised a hand. The standard is objective. Moving your mother out of her home with 2 suitcases and telling her to find somewhere else to die does not meet it. Brandon shifted. That was said in the heat of the moment. Serafina's voice cracked. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. I was stressed. The money, the house, it's overwhelming. I thought I was helping. I looked at her. The girl who once cried when I got a parking ticket now sat here trying to rewrite yesterday. David continued. The banks have frozen everything pending resolution. No transfers, no withdrawals. If Serafina contests, we go to probate court. If she doesn't, the reversion clause activates automatically. Serafina's eyes filled. You're taking everything. No, I said quietly. Your father is. She turned to me, mascara starting to run. Mom, please. Think about Knox. Think about the family. We can work this out. I'll apologize. I'll help with his care. Anything. I felt the old pull, the one that made me forgive. Missed birthdays, forgotten calls, endless excuses. But this time, it didn't stick. Serafina, I said you made your choice when you walked into the house with those suitcases. Brandon tried next. Mrs. Vaughn, let's keep this private. No need for court. We can agree on something fair. David gave a faint chuckle. Fair. The will is already fair. Floyd made sure of it. Serafina stood abruptly. This isn't over. I'll get my own lawyer. I'll fight this. David nodded. You're entitled to. But understand the evidence is the document itself, and Floyd's intent is crystal clear. She grabbed her purse, tears now streaming. You're destroying our family, Mom. I stood too. No. You did that. They left without another word. The door closed behind them with a soft click. David looked at me. You okay? I exhaled. Better than I expected. He tapped the folder. We'll file the formal challenge today if she contests. But Cora, the accounts are frozen. The house is protected. You can go home. Home. The word felt strange after everything. But it was mine again. I thought of Knox waiting, probably confused, probably hungry for something normal. I thought of the garden I hadn't tended in days, the ramp that needed a quick check. And for the first time since Floyd died, I felt a small spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. David walked me to the elevator. Call me if she contacts you directly. We'll handle the rest. I stepped into the elevator alone. The doors closed and I watched the floors tick down. Serafina had come expecting to win. She left knowing she'd already lost. 2 days after the meeting at David's office, Serafina showed up at the motel. I was surprised she even knew where I was staying. She must have asked the clerk, or maybe she'd followed me. Either way, she knocked politely, almost sweetly, like we were meeting for brunch. I opened the door. She stood there in a light sweater and jeans, hair pulled back, looking younger than her 34 years. Brandon hovered behind her, hands in pockets, eyes on the parking lot. "Mom," Serafina said, voice soft. "Can we talk, please?" I stepped aside. "Come in." They sat on the edge of the bed. The room felt smaller with them in it. Serafina looked around, thin curtains, chipped nightstand, small TV bolted to the wall, and her face tightened. "This place is awful," she said. "You shouldn't be here." I sat in the only chair. "I'm managing." She leaned forward. "We've been thinking. A lot. About everything." Brandon nodded. "We overreacted. The move in, the suitcases, we were stressed. The money stuff got in the way." Serafina reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. "Mom, we want to fix this. Knox needs a stable home. We can make that happen. We'll move him into the downstairs bedroom, hire full-time help. Physical therapy, nursing, whatever he needs. We'll cover it all." I looked at her. "You said you'd figure out care for him after I left." She winced. "I know what I said. I was wrong. I was angry. But I love my brother. I want to help." Brandon chimed in. "And think about the future. We're planning a family. Kids. Knox would be the best uncle. He could teach them things, sports, life lessons. We could all be together again. One big family." Serafina smiled, small, hopeful. "Grandchildren, Mom. You always said you wanted them close. We can make that happen. But we need the house. It's the only place big enough. We'll take care of everything. You won't have to worry about bills, maintenance, nothing." I listened. The words were smooth, practiced. They'd rehearsed this. Serafina squeezed my hand. "We can drop the court stuff. No probate fight. Just sign a new agreement. You keep a fair amount, maybe 5 million. We get the house and the rest. Everyone wins," Brandon added quickly. "And we'll set up a trust for Knox. Lifetime care. No questions asked." I looked from one to the other. The motel lamp cast shadows on their faces. They looked earnest. Almost convincing. Almost. I pulled my hand back gently. "You want me to sign away what Floyd left me?" Serafina's eyes widened. "Not sign away. Compromise. For the family." "For Knox," Brandon echoed. I stood up. "Knox doesn't need your compromise. He needs stability. And he has it with me." Serafina's face hardened just a fraction. "Mom, be reasonable. You're not going to win in court. The clause is vague. Respect, support. We can argue that. Judges hate family fights. They'll split it anyway." I gave a quiet chuckle. "Then let them argue." Brandon tried one last time. "Think about the grandchildren. Don't you want to be part of their lives?" I walked to the door and opened it. "I want Knox to have a grandmother who isn't bought off. And I want to live in the home his father and I built. Together." Serafina stood slowly. "You're making a mistake." I met her eyes. "No. I'm making a choice." They left without another word. The door closed behind them and the room felt bigger again. That afternoon I called David. "I'm ready to go home." He arranged everything. A locksmith met me at Birchwood Circle that evening. The new keys felt heavy in my hand, simple brass, but they meant everything. Knox was waiting on the porch when I pulled up. He'd managed to get himself outside, stubborn as ever. "Mom," he said, voice thick. "You're back." I hugged him hard. "I'm back." Inside the house smelled like home coffee wood polish, the faint lavender from the sachets I kept in drawers. Serafina and Brandon had left most things untouched. A few boxes in the garage, their clothes gone. I started small, cleaned the kitchen, made Knox's favorite pasta extra garlic because he always said it kept the vampires away. We ate at the table, just the two of us, talking about nothing important. Baseball scores, the neighbor's new dog, normal things. The next morning, I called a contractor. The ramp needed reinforcement. The bathroom grab bars could be upgraded. The garden beds overgrown since Floyd died needed tending. I hired a part-time aide for Knox so I could have a few hours to myself. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since the kids were small. The sunroom became my studio. Messy canvases, bright colors. Knox wheeled in sometimes to watch. "Looks good, Mom," he said one day. "Like you." I chuckled softly. Like me, before I forgot how to have fun. Weeks passed. David kept me updated. Serafina filed a contest to the will claimed undue influence that Floyd wasn't in his right mind. David filed the response. The probate court set a hearing date. I didn't worry. The evidence was the document itself. Floyd's words. His signature. One evening, Knox and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. He said quietly, "They're not coming back, are they?" I shook my head. "No." He looked at me. "Good." I squeezed his hand. "Good." The house finally breathed easy again. The probate hearing came faster than I expected, 4 months after the initial filing. The courtroom in downtown Portland was small, wood-paneled with seats for maybe 50 people. Only a handful showed up, David and me on one side, Serafina and her new attorney on the other. Brandon wasn't there. I heard later he'd started avoiding public appearances. The judge was a woman in her late 50s, sharp-eyed, no-nonsense. She read the will aloud, clause by clause, her voice steady and clear. When she reached the conditional trust provision, Serafina shifted in her seat. Her lawyer tried to argue ambiguity, claimed respect and support were subjective, that Serafina had offered reconciliation, that Floyd's mental state at signing was questionable. David presented the evidence quietly, Floyd's medical records showing full capacity, the dated updates, to the will, the personal note in his handwriting. Then he played the video message Floyd had recorded 6 months before he died. On the courtroom screen, Floyd appeared thinner than I remembered, but eyes bright. He spoke directly to the camera. "If you're watching this, Serafina, it means you've done what I hoped you wouldn't. I loved you, kid. But I saw the way you treated your mother sometimes, like she was an accessory instead of the person who raised you. Cora gave up her own dreams to support ours. If you can't honor that, after I'm gone, you don't deserve what I built." He looked straight at the lens. "Cora, if I'm wrong about her, forgive me. But if I'm right, take care of yourself and Knox. You've earned it." The video ended. The room was silent. Serafina stared at the blank screen, face pale. The judge ruled quickly. The conditional clause was enforceable. Serafina had violated it by evicting her mother, misrepresenting the will, and failing to provide support. The $15 million reverted to me. The house and the remaining assets were confirmed as mine under the 70% provision. Serafina's lawyer asked for a stay. The judge denied it. The evidence is overwhelming. Judgment for the petitioner. Serafina didn't look at me as she left. Her heels echoed down the hallway. Afterward, David walked me to the parking garage. "It's over. The accounts are unfrozen. The title to the house is clear." I nodded. "Thank you." He gave a quiet grin. Floyd would be proud. The fallout came fast. Word spread quickly in Portland's tighter circles, the ones where people knew Floyd from business, where Serafina had once been invited to parties. Friends distanced themselves. Invitations stopped. The local charity board she'd sat on asked her to step down due to personal circumstances. Brandon's job, already shaky, let him go quietly. No public reason given, but everyone knew. They tried to sell the SUV. It didn't fetch much. Their apartment lease ended and they couldn't renew. Last I heard through a mutual acquaintance, they'd moved to a smaller place outside the city, 1 bedroom, rent-controlled. Brandon took odd jobs. Serafina looked for work. Any work, but references were thin. Letters arrived at the house. First one from Serafina, handwritten, apologetic. Then another, longer, blaming stress and grief. Then emails from her lawyer suggesting mediation. I read the first two. After that, I stopped opening them. I didn't respond. Not once. Knox asked about it once. You ever going to talk to her? I shook my head. No. He nodded. Fair enough. The silence felt right. Not angry. Just final. I kept busy. The roses Floyd planted years ago finally bloomed under my care. I joined a local senior art group. We met Tuesdays at the community center. I brought cookies I baked myself. People chuckled at my stories about learning to paint after 65. Better late than never, one woman said. I agreed. Knox started a small online business, custom wheelchair accessories. He designed them, I helped with shipping. We laughed when the first order came from someone in Seattle. Look at that, he said. We're entrepreneurs. I chuckled. Your father would love this. These days, life is quieter in the best way. Mornings start with coffee on the porch while Knox does his stretches. Afternoons are for errands or painting or just sitting together watching old movies. Evenings are mine reading, calling friends from the senior center, planning the next foundation board meeting. One Tuesday, I drove Knox to his therapy appointment. On the way back, he said, "You know, Mom, I like this version of you." I glanced at him. Which version? The one who says no when she needs to. I gave a real laugh. Took me long enough. He grinned. Better late than never. We stopped for ice cream on the way home. He got mint chip. I got vanilla. We sat in the parking lot with the windows down, eating like teenagers skipping class. A ladybug landed on the dashboard. Knox carefully nudged it out the window. Make a wish, he said. I watched it fly away. Already did. Back at the house, I hung a new painting in the hallway, one I'd finished last week. It was simple. A woman standing in sunlight, back to the viewer, looking toward an open door. Knox wheeled up beside me. That's you, he said. Maybe. He nodded. It's good. I touched the frame. It feels good. Looking back on all of it now, I realize this story isn't really about money or houses or even betrayal. It's about what truly matters when the years start adding up. Money can buy comfort, yes. It can buy safety for your child and help for others who need it. But it can never buy respect, loyalty, or the kind of love that shows up when no one's watching. Greed has a way of stripping everything bare. It makes people forget who raised them, who stayed up nights worrying, who gave up their own dreams so theirs could grow. Serafina lost more than $15 million that day in court. She lost her place in a family she never truly valued, and that loss, no amount of money can fix it. If there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this: protect your dignity, protect your boundaries, and never let anyone convince you that your worth is measured by what you can give them. You deserve people who stay because they love you, not because of what you own. There's no happy reunion here, no forgiveness scene, no tearful porch confession. Some bridges burn for good reason, and it's okay to let them stay ashes. To everyone watching, thank you for listening to my story. It means more than you know to have you here sharing this journey with me. Whether you're caring for a loved one, dealing with family strains, or just needing a reminder that strength comes later in life, I hope you found something useful. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Stay kind to the people who truly matter, and may good fortune find you in the ways that count most. If this story touched you, please give it a like. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Drop a comment below. Tell me your thoughts, share your own experiences, or suggest ideas for future stories. Your words help me make these better, and they remind all of us we're not alone. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Spread the word so more people can listen, reflect, and maybe find a little courage of their own. Thank you again. Until next time, be well and be true to yourself.